Good morning, church.
Good morning.
And welcome to another GEM Math and Science, God in Math and Science program. I'll just remind you, just a little summary of GEM. GEM is a non-profit organization. It was established in 1991. We began in New York. Our program was then conducted at the Excelsior SDA Elementary School in Brooklyn, where we went on every Sunday, and we kept math and science enrichment programs for the children at the school to bring them up to par on grade in the math and science and to get them interested in STEM subjects and careers. Then we moved to the F.H. Jenkins SDA Elementary School in Nashville, where we conducted the program, did the same, and currently then it was at a public school, the Highland School, right here in Huntsville, one of the failing schools, and currently at Oakwood Elementary School. We conduct after-school math and science and also summer camps and individual help with those that are interested in coming up to grade in the math and science and to raise an interest in those careers. And over the years, we have had, by God's grace and help and blessings, significant success. Those that thought they could not do math and science, those that ignored it, are now in math and science and STEM careers, doing what they thought they could never do. So it's a blessing. And I look at math and science as God's language. As was brought out in our Sabbath school, everything to do with God is precise. It is timed. It is mathematical. It is dated. It's years, etc. This is the language of God. When you know math and science thoroughly, you understand creation better. You understand your body and the way it works better because everything is mathematical. Everything is precision. So this morning, we'll give you another little demonstration of God in math and science. Be blessed.
Okay, you can try that out. Happy Sabbath, everyone. Okay, different persons have different talents, right? Like this would be my wife's comfort zone, right? So with this whole thing hooked up to me, I just had to make sure that everything is turned on and working right. Okay, I'm have volume now, right? Okay, so the question is, we're going to start out with, is God real? Now, at the end of our session, I want to know if you get the point that I'm trying to make, or the question we're trying to answer. Is God real? Now, every time we do the math and science program, the first thing that I always start out with, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That's why when we do this program, we don't even collect, people try to donate and so forth. We don't, because we believe our program is based on God. And so, we don't be very conservative with that. And, we want people to work with folks who believe in God, because that's the program. So they can't tell us not to say what we believe in. And so that's a very, very important thing to us. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. But is there God around? Is God real? Is anybody around us here apart from us sitting here? Is anything around us here that are seeing us, that are hearing us, that we cannot see? We were told that someone just saw a mosquito. That was funny. But anyhow, the thing is, there are a lot of things that are, most of the things I found out in the universe, we can't even see it. Now, we have a big container here. This container, it has water inside of it. I have one, a glass. Okay. Now, this here has a candle in here. But the question is it now empty? It's empty now. Now, somebody said something just now. Who is the one that said it has air in it? Okay, what did you say again? Say it one more time. It has what? Air. It has air in it. This is not really empty. But could we see the air? No. Could we see the air? We cannot. Now, I want to discuss one very important thing that is around us that we can't see. And I'm going to ask Pastor Chris if we can put it on the screen. The thing that we're going to look at is the electromagnetic spectrum. And Pastor Chris is going to put a copy of that on the screen.
Can we put it on the other screen? Or put the board on the other side. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so when around us, right now, as we're sitting here, the electromagnetic spectrum is here, and it has always been around us. So let's take a look at what it comprises of. The first band is radio waves. Okay, could you see it from there? The first band is radio waves. The next band is microwave. The next one, okay, we have radar here. He just pulled it. By the way, he just pulled this up on the internet. Okay, then in the middle of all of them is light. Light is the one in the middle of all of them. And guess what? God is light. And light has 7 wavelengths. And how many of these electromagnetic waves you think there are? There's 7 of them. And there's something special about the number 7 that God likes. So when you look at light, light has red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. It has 7 colors. And for those who are in school, maybe in college, something that can help you to remember all 7 of these, maybe you can start with light. That's how I remember them. Start with light. Light is in the middle, number 4. And just to the left of light, it starts red. So the one next to red is infrared. Okay, so when you look at the light spectrum, the one next to red is infrared. And the one next to violet is ultraviolet. So right away, you know 3 of the magnetic spectrum. And of course, the first one is radio waves. And all I'm going to talk about now, we just have time to talk about one of them, radio waves. Okay, what do you know about radio waves? What I'm going to do, okay, I decide to call my wife. Okay, when I...
Shh, I'm in church.
Okay, so she doesn't want to talk, right? We're in church. What are you doing in church?
Worshiping my God.
Okay, now imagine when I talk to her, she quickly hears that. But guess what? Sound is what comes out from my mouth. And this phone transforms it to a radio wave. Because if we decide to use sound, this sound that comes out from my mouth becomes radio waves, and it goes all the way to space, to the satellites. And it bounces all the way back to get to her ear. But what they're doing now, they have towers that are lower, and it makes it come back faster. Okay? So when I talk to her, this signal goes all the way into space and comes back to her ear. But how does it get there so quickly? You see, sound only travels at about 761 miles per hour. There are airplanes that travel much faster than sound. So sound is very slow. So for sound waves to go all the way to space and come back, the conversation would take a long time. Instead of 3 or 4 seconds, it will take hours. So what God does, imagine the sound is transformed into radio waves, which is now traveling at the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second. So it goes quickly to space and comes back so that she can hear me and answer me.
Let
Now,
me interject here, though, to explain to you the speed at which it happens, but the process that is happening while it's happening at that speed. So he talks to me in his voice. In his voice, it turns into electrical current, into this radio wave, goes into space, comes back to my phone. But when I hear it, that sound on his phone, I'm hearing his voice as he spoke it on his phone. So it transfers it into an electrical current, but when it gets back to my phone, it comes back into his voice, that I can recognize it as his voice. And all of that is in a quick second, boom.
it's just, listen, you know what's our conclusion? God, you're amazing. God is awesome. He is awesome, I'm telling you. Now, let's take a quick look at the speed at which it travels. It travels at 186,000 miles per second. So at this speed, this light would have gone from here in 2 seconds, it would have passed the moon, because the moon is about 250,000 miles from the earth. So at this speed, light in 2 seconds, it would have gone way past the moon. Okay? And how long would it take to get to the sun? It takes about 8 minutes to get to the sun. At this speed, at this blinding speed, it takes 8 minutes to get to the sun. And at this speed, how long do you think it takes to get to the closest star? The closest star. 1 day. Now imagine light. By the way, if you put this multiplication, notice I didn't work it out. Because if you try to work it out like our college students, they know they have to start using scientific notation. Because the number is so big, if you put it in your cell phone, it wouldn't give you the answer. It would put it in scientific notation, because there's so many zeros you have to write. So at this speed, how long you think it takes to get to somebody said 1 day. Now imagine at this speed, light is traveling all morning, all day, and all night, and it still has not reached the closest star. And he's saying it takes 1 day. Well, it takes more than that. How long do you think it takes to meet the nearest star? I will tell you what the answer. The closest star, it takes 4 years and 3 months. So how long ago the light started, and it still hasn't reached the closest star? The closest star. What I want to let you understand, brethren, is that this God that we serve, he's awesome. And when you understand the God that you're serving, you would see the things that you ask him for is nothing, because he does things that are a million times greater than that. And then we're going to ask Pastor Chris question number 2. He's Googling it now. So it's not you getting my words. Pastor Chris, the next question is, what is, and by the way, when you get to the sun is part of the whole Milky Way. Okay, so I'm going to ask Pastor Chris, Google for me, please, how long or how wide is our galaxy? Our galaxy. Any student can tell us the name of our galaxy?
The Milky Way, somebody said.
The Milky Way, thank you very much, appreciate it. So how long or how wide is our galaxy? Okay, so Pastor Chris, the answer is it's about 100,000 light years. So imagine at this speed, light is traveling for 100,000 years just to go from one part of our galaxy to the other end of our galaxy. Think about that. Think about the number of miles that it would take light to get from one part of our galaxy to the other end of our galaxy. Next question, Pastor Chris. How many galaxies do you think there are? Google that for me, please. How many galaxies? Any guess before the answer comes up? Oh, huh? Huh? One galaxy? Okay.
Answer.
I don't see the answer. Okay, in other words, there are about 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies. Galaxies. I mean, I want you to understand the size of this universe and the God that you're serving. I mean, God, you're awesome. You're amazing.
And when we Googled it, they said that this is just an estimate, but their conclusion is that it's infinite. That's from what they could see, and therefore they estimated from what they could see. But their assumption and conclusion is that it's infinite. They cannot come to a definite conclusion because it's beyond what they could even see.
Right. Brethren, God is awesome. He's real. If we can leave here understanding that, the power of that God we serve. And guess what? He is so big, and yet he's small enough to live in our hearts. Isn't that awesome? Awesome. Awesome.
He knows each of us by name. He knows how many strands of hair on your head. He knows where you live. He knows where you came from. Individually.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. There is a point that I think I must make. It just.
I stole your spot. Sorry.
Okay. Yes. It's Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay. Now there's a very important point.
It will come back. Let's move on.
Okay, and this is what I guess that's fine. I'm back on track. Okay. If light takes billions of years to go from one end of the universe to the other, or even from our galaxy, when Jesus comes, there must be another form of transportation. That's too slow. Light is too slow. When Jesus comes, I had to give this point to you. I know the Lord is going to bring it right back to my memory. Right? There must be another form of transportation, just like how the sound energy had to be transformed into electrical energy so that it got a boost as a radio wave. Then there must be something much faster than light to boost us, to get us from here to heaven. Tell me, Pastor.
And I think that's why it will take eternity. We will be learning throughout eternity. When you understand the vastness of God's creation, it will take eternity to explore it and to get to know it and to even get an inkling and understanding of it, because it's infinite. So we require eternity to go from one galaxy to the next, from one star to the next, from one world to the next, until we begin to even discover God's creation.
Right. And by the way, and that's all that they know about. That's it. That's all. In fact, when you Google it, it said that's all they're able to see. And they said it's at least 2 billion or a trillion, 2 trillion, you know how much that is? Galaxies. So when we see dots in the sky, it may look like stars, but many of them are galaxies. Galaxies. It's amazing. Who is it that said, when you look, the Lord stretched out the heavens? Where is it in Psalms? Stretched out the heavens. And the thing what I like, God's word is so precise. We are now getting to understand. Job is the one who said that a long time ago. But now they're finding out that God is accurate. He never changed. He never has changed, and he never will change. Okay, another thing that we're going to address that we cannot see is air. Air. I'm not seeing it. Okay, so my wife is going to talk about, and if you notice, the things that you cannot see are the most important things to you. Wow. Keep that in mind. Think about that. Okay, Sister Carol.
And they're the things that are free and the things that man cannot control. If they could, a lot of us would be dead. If we had to depend on them to give us air. Not only that, too, if God had to leave it to us to breathe, we are so busy and so distracted, some of us would forget to breathe. And we'll be dead too. We'll be killing our own selves.
Sunlight, that's another
Okay,
thing.
but air, we cannot
It's-
see air,
it's-
but
it's-
air is very
it's
real.
free.
It is there. I'm sure when you left your houses this morning, it was breezy, right? And they're expecting it to go up to about 70 miles per hour, they said later today. You can feel the effect of it, but you cannot see it. And you cannot live without it. We can live 40 days without food. We can live about a week without water, but 3 to 5 minutes maximum without air. You would be dead. If 3 to 5 minutes you do not get air going up to your brain, it will shut down. Yet still that air has about what, 78% hydrogen and 90% of protein, as I told you, percent of protein, hydrogen, sorry, yes, 78% hydrogen, right, nitrogen in the air. And protein is made up of 90% of nitrogen. So when you breathe, and you breathe fresh air outside, you're breathing in protein, which your body needs so much. And that undermines the myth that we need extra protein in our diet, that we need to eat meat. No, you just breathe and you get a good sufficient supply of protein. It comes from the air because 90% of protein is nitrogen and 78% of the air is nitrogen. So you breathe deeply, you supply your body with what it needs to make protein, which is a building block of your body. And by the way, he was talking about the number 7 that God loves so much. It takes 7 days for the body to make the protein amino acid building block. So that gives you a little inkling about the creation of your whole body. 7 days. 7 days to build that little protein building block amino acid for your body. So the body also, 56% of your vitality and energy, which I said the last time, I'm repeating because it's relevant to our subject this morning. 56% of your energy and your vitality comes from the air that you breathe, that you cannot see. 56% of it. It's not from the food that you eat. As I told you before, the food that you eat only supplies 5% of your vitality and your energy. The food is really to give nutrients to the body to build up the cells, because every 6 months our body is producing new cells. So that food that you eat, if it is nutrient dense, it gives your body the nutrients to build those cells that you need for regeneration. But your vitality, your energy that you need to move and do what you have to do and to think, etc., 56% of it comes from the air that you cannot see, that you are breathing in all the time. And that air, it invigorates you, it cleanses you, it has negative ions that build the immune system. And that's why it is so important that you go outside and get some fresh air into those lungs every day. Especially in the winter, we are prone to stay indoors and lock up everything, all windows and everything. Always have a window open, even if it brings up the electric bill a little. Always have some fresh air circulating in your house and go outside. Even when you're going to your car to work, even when you're coming home from the car, between the car and the house, take some deep breaths and go inside with some fresh oxygen in your lungs. You know, it invigorates you, it builds your immune system. It gives you vitality and it gives you energy.
That's quick.
Okay, while he's preparing, I can move on. Our body is electric. Now remember, we talk about the electricity, the waves and so. We talk about the electromagnetic field, and there are the different waves in them. Now all of the electromagnetic waves in the spectrum, whether it is radio waves or microwaves or gamma rays or X-rays, ultraviolet rays, they all come from where? The sun. The sun is the source of all of it. So the sun emits all of those rays in the form of radiation, but only 3 of them really meets the earth or gets to the earth because they are the longer waves. The longer waves are the radio waves and the microwaves and the ultraviolet rays. Some of the ultraviolet rays right, gets to the earth. The others are shorter waves. That's why they're so intense. The gamma waves, which is the nuclear, that's why it's so explosive. They're shorter and more intense. These do not reach the earth. But the first 3, these reach the earth. Now the sun is the source of all of that. This is where the energy, and that's why sun is so important for us to get into that sun every day. Our body is electric. There is electricity in your body. Your brain, communication in your brain through the neurons and so is electricity. And that electricity in the brain is what communicates to all the different parts of your body. So the brain will give my mouth instructions to talk and say what I'm saying, or to hold this thing, or if I touch something hot, to pull my hand out. Or if you put an apple in your mouth, you bite a piece of apple, that brain has to send a message to the stomach and tell it, apple is coming. And therefore, it prepares a precise concoction of digestive juices just to digest apple alone. And that's why your food must be simple. You put too many things and you confuse it and you get acid, because everything needs a different concoction for digestion, a different strength. Protein would need a stronger digestive juice than apple or fruit, which takes about 2 hours, and protein takes about 5 hours, to digest. So the brain is so important that we have our brain healthy and clear, and we give it what it needs, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, etc., so that it can function properly and send those messages, electrical messages, information through electrical waves, to give instructions to all other organs in the body. And the most important organ is the liver. The liver, that's where everything starts. After the brain, the most important is the liver, because the liver is the one that puts together the building blocks for everything. Say, for instance, the heart needs new cells for regeneration. The liver would prepare that building block, 80% of the cell, sends it in the blood knows to take it to the heart. When it gets to the heart, the receptors would open and receive it because it's specific. If it goes to the lungs will not receive it because it's not for the lungs. When it gets to the heart would complete it, the other 20%. You see how precise God is and how wonderful and complex our body is? So we need to keep that electricity flowing in the body, because instruction comes from there throughout the body. And the number one thing that disturbs that electricity is what? Not just your food. You'll be surprised. And that's, for us as Christians, we should have an edge there, but not necessarily so. Sadness, loneliness, death, hopelessness, anger, bitterness, regret, discontent, these things short circuit the electricity in our brains, and therefore the organs do not get instructions. So the liver then does not produce the digestive juices. The digestive juices are weak. So when you eat, that's why you get acid in your stomach, and everything else is malfunctioning. That's why Ellen G. White says, if you are hurried or if you're angry, she said, don't eat. And that's why the psalmist tells us, happiness is like what? A merry heart is like a medicine. But he says, when there is sadness, it drieth the bones. And that is very literal, and that is very physical, because the instructions to make the marrow for the bones is not coming for the brain, and it literally dries up and you get sick.
Okay. Amen, sister. Okay, come. Okay. God is awesome. God. God is awesome. Tell me about it. I tell you, talking about that, I want to show you how precise God is. I'm going to piggyback on what she just mentioned. Now imagine, what's the body temperature? 98.6. God didn't say it's below 100 or below 90. It's 98.6. If you don't, your body is not at that temperature. There are so many other issues. But guess what? A young man, his testicles are outside of the body. And you know why? God is not arbitrary the way he does things. Because if that organ was in your body, like all your other organs, and like for women, all of their organs are in their body. If for a man, that testicles is outdoor, all the sperm cells will die, because it requires about 95.6 degrees Fahrenheit for it to function properly. And so God is precise. He knew that. And so he took the testicles and left them outside. And maybe they're from other reasons too. So that when you look at a man and a woman, you know the difference. You can't get confused, because it's so important. We have dogs, right? And we wanted to get pups. And we had to be specific as to which dog we put with which dog, because we would not have any pups if we made the wrong choice. So it's important. God wants you to know which is male, which is female. If you're growing up and you don't know whether you're male or female, that's a very serious situation that you were in. And so God is very precise. And so that's why he put the male organ on the outside. Okay. Now let's look at another example to show how precise God is. Now we know that anybody go fishing, the fish, when it's cold, they're at the bottom of the pond. But guess what? Do you know that the pond does not freeze up at the bottom? Why not? Why is it that the ponds do not freeze and all the fish die? Okay, all right. I have some good answers. All right. Now, the rule is, and by the way, everything about God, we can't talk about everything now. God goes by laws. He sets laws. And those laws are not arbitrary. If you don't, and they apply all the time. If I do these experiments here in Egypt, the guy does it in China, it works all the time. And that's the things about God. He is so precise, he is so consistent. And so I'll explain to you why the water does not freeze up, following one of God's laws. The law says if you cool anything, it contracts. Or young people, if we cool something, it contracts. And when you heat something, what does it do? It expands. So if you cool water, you contract. And when something contracts, it becomes more dense and it falls to the bottom. Okay, so something that is more dense, like iron, is more likely it would fall to the bottom. And so let's take a look at this, the law God has. This is water at 100 degrees Celsius. Okay? And when you cool it, the temperature keeps dropping. And when the temperature drops, it sinks to the bottom. So if you have a pond, and we're going to try to simulate a pond here and cool some water. And so we'll take a look and see what happens. Okay? In a second, let me just finish. Okay. All right. So we cool the water. It keeps dropping. And the reason it contracts and drops to the bottom. But guess what? At a certain point, all of that changes. It's just amazing. And you can Google this here. In fact, that's one of the things, but they said, we have so many other things to Google. And you can Google it when you go home, the youngsters too, the students. When it gets to 4 degrees Fahrenheit, that rule stops. Instead of contracting, it expands. Instead of water contracting, following that rule all along that it has been following, when water gets to 4 degrees Fahrenheit, it stops contracting and it starts expanding. And when it expands, of course, it rises. When something expands, it becomes less dense and it rises. That's when you heat air, it rises. Okay? So when the water is further cooled, when it gets to 4, it now starts rising to the top. And as you keep cooling it, it expands more and it rises to the top. So what you have the coldest water on top of the pond until it reaches a certain temperature, and then the rule changes back to where it was. So that's the point we want to make. If we have water and we cool it, I'm going to ask, if you get a tomato, I'm going to ask maybe one of our, and if you notice, when you're dealing with things of God, you have to be precise. These thermometers will be the same here or in China, wherever you go. And that's how you know the things of God. It's precise, a ruler, a clock. I'm trying to get somebody to help me to check the temperature of this water. It's very important. Anyone you guys think you can help me? Okay, so I'm going to start off reading it. In degrees Fahrenheit, it's about 60 degrees. So room temperature, this water temperature is 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So I'm cooling the water now. This is dry ice, which is carbon dioxide.
Solid carbon dioxide. So now it's a gas now. That's gas.
This is
It's being
carbon
released.
dioxide. Sonia, light a candle, please. Okay, I'm going to try to catch a little bit for myself. By the way, maybe try some carbon dioxide in your plants. Your plants may love it. Okay. You see, one thing that our students will never forget, that carbon dioxide is heavier than air. You see, when you see these things, you will always remember that carbon dioxide is heavier than air. See, if it wasn't heavier than air, it couldn't pour like this. God, you're amazing. I tell you about it. I'm telling you, you get so passionate about it. You know, when the fool says in his heart, there is no God, you must be a fool to believe that there is no God. There's another one. There's another one. There's another candle. There's another candle. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cover this and just maybe save it for later on. Okay. Save it for later on. Maybe during the potluck. I don't know what it will go with, but okay. Okay. So let's. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just. Okay, we started about
60 degrees.
Okay, the temperature, we started at 60 degrees. Okay, this is the starting time.
Now it's 50 degrees.
Okay, so the 5 minutes after, it went to 50 degrees. Okay. And Betty, I'll appreciate if you can let us know when 5 minutes, 5 more minutes. Betty's always done that. Betty's an expert at that. Betty says 5 more minutes, that's it. Okay. You can't find it on the candle. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Does it only do that in water?
Not necessarily, no, but that's
It will
right
be the
now
same
we
in
use.
vinegar too.
Where's the candle? This is much. Yeah, it'd be good if we can just get this lighted. I did it. Okay, all right, so let's lighten up. Okay. What I want to show you is okay. Okay. No.
Demonstrate that. You see, it puts off the light instantly. Oh, wow. Carbon dioxide does put off fire.
That's the next thing that you learn also. The students, if you were 5 years old, 10 years old, you will always remember that carbon dioxide puts out a fire. In fact, fire extinguishers, that's what's in the fire extinguisher that comes out and puts out the fire. So 2 things they would always remember, that carbon dioxide is heavier than air, and carbon dioxide puts out a fire. Bring a match. You have to come.
Is that why when we blow out the match,
Yeah, okay.
Why what?
when you blow out a match, it goes out, the carbon comes from your mouth?
Yes. And the air too, combination.
Okay, if you notice, the carbon dioxide did put out the fire. Okay, and so, so it's 10 minutes later. Betty, is this okay? Oh, 2 minutes? Oh, 2 more minutes. Okay, so, and this is, for the youngsters, the ones in college as well. It's down to 40 degrees. Okay, so the reason this is important, like kids have a problem with graphs, so they don't know like what really is it. It's just a theoretical thing they do in school. But then when you can see practical applications, when you hear about graphs at any age, then you can see what they're trying to do. Like 10 minutes after, we're going to check to see what the temperature is. You said it's?
It was 16 and 15, now it's 14.
It's now 40. Okay, Betty, you close? 32 seconds, but we're going to kind of speed things up a little bit. So 10 minutes after, it's somewhere around here, okay? And 15 minutes after, we're going to check it. But if you notice, it started out here, and it came down here, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and that's it, I'm going to just guess. 15 minutes, it comes down here. So that's what a graph will look like. That's what a graph will look like. So when you hear the word graph and you go sit down in a class, you wouldn't be scared because you know exactly what they're doing and what they're talking about. Okay, so that's really it for now on this topic here. So this here just shows that God is so precise. You start at 0 and we made a chart. And we cool this water. And as the water keeps getting cold, I'll tell you the rest of the story. As it keeps getting colder, the temperature will drop all the way to 4 degrees. And then it will start expanding, and the cold water will go towards the top. So we don't have the time to finish all of that. We just don't have the time to do that. Okay, so we're going to move on. Okay. Now, things that we cannot see. I'm still looking. Is there good? Is there evil around you? Is there good and evil around you? How would you know that these things are there? If you notice, we had to use some different kind of, like a thermometer, to measure the temperature. But how do you know that evil is around you? And so you must have tools to recognize when they're good and evil around you, because I'll tell you something. Every single day you wake up, there are good and evil swirling around you that you don't have the foggiest idea are there. Just like how you could not see the air that was in this container, just in a similar manner, you could not see the good and the evil swirling around you. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. And this story happened a little while ago, right? My kids were little, so, you know, and they're 20, oldest is 26 now. I took a group on a mission trip to Guyana, right? And along with the group, there was a pastor, Pastor Jackson, Fitzroy Jackson, who's an Oakwood graduate. Many persons know Pastor Fitzroy Jackson. And so he did a crusade during the time, and my younger brother was working at a hospital doing surgeries as a surgeon. And by the way, these same experiments, when I went around the place, he was right there with me. I guess when my mom died, he was a year and a half old. So I raised him like my son, right? And so as a surgeon, and by the way, if you're going to do surgery, you must not be confused with what's the difference between the liver and the lung. You must know exactly where to find them. Imagine you're doing surgery. Where is this? And the thing about it, if you go to Japan, China, wherever you go, all those organs are the same place. You don't have to search for them. And that's how you know the things of God. They're consistent. You could depend on them. When I do this experiment, I know the experiment will work. Why? Because the things of God are so consistent. But anyhow, we talk about good and evil. And when my kids were little, like I told you, and we had to leave. They had a baptism. I think they baptized about 104 persons who were baptized on that trip. But anyhow, while we were with our kids, my wife and I with our kids, sitting there in the lunchroom, because the little kids had to eat. They could not spend all the time because, you know, the baptism is after church, 1, 2 o'clock. And we heard the song singing all the time, over and over. Take me to the waters to be baptized. Take my sons and daughters. And they kept singing the song over and over, and they just would not stop. About 5 minutes, they're singing this song. So the church was not too far. Where we were eating was like the side of the church. And I went over there. In fact, my son came with me. And what we found, they were baptizing a lady. And the lady that they were baptizing, she don't care what she did. They could not baptize this lady. They tried to put her under the water, dunk her in the water. She would not go down. She was just like a piece of wood. They could not bend her. Then Pastor Jackson, then of course 2 of them tried it, I must add that, and they could not baptize her. Then Pastor Jackson said, in the name of God, devil, get out of this woman. And I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Boom! And she went right under the water. But I did not tell you what happened before that. Before she went under that water, when those pastors, and these were other pastors, these are the 2 persons, pastors for the local church, when they were trying to baptize her, blood was coming out of her mouth. I mean, it was something to see. The water was bloody. Folks, the devil is real. And they could not baptize this lady. But when Pastor Jackson came, under the water she went. Evil is swirling around you. But let me tell you what's interesting. What's interesting is that we were staying there, my family and I, and a couple of the persons who came down with us, at the conference office on Peter Rose and Ammon Street in Georgetown. And that same night, that same Sabbath night, there was a knock on the door. And it was night, you know. I was shocked when this same lady came up and knocked when I opened the door. I was shocked. Did I run? I wouldn't tell you. But I believe that there's power in the Almighty, you know. And I said, you know, can I help you? She said, you know, I have a complaint to make. I said, what is the complaint? She said, I went to church yesterday to be baptized, and they did not baptize me. That's what her, I mean, I saw with my own eyes that she was baptized, but it just shows when the devil possesses you, you know, what foolishness you do. And you see, some people think that, you know, the devil is just a figment of people's imagination. Folks, he's real, and he is so subtle. What he tries to do, you know what his biggest target is? His biggest target is husband and wife. After spending a lot of time, and by the way, what I do a lot of people know I do a lot of event planning. And I will take people on different cruises, and they will have different programs. One thing I always have on my program is relationship seminars. Relationship seminars. Because, you know, the devil tries to do everything to destroy relationships. Because he knows that if he can do that, he would have won the battle. And what he does, in such a subtle way, what he tries to do is keep husband and wife apart. And so they may find themselves not talking to each other. You know, he doesn't just start just like that. Then they're not talking to then they're mad with each other. And they keep drifting forward and forward apart, sleeping at one end of the bed and the other end of the bed. So the devil gets in between. So I'm just saying, brethren, you have to recognize the devil. You have to have the tools to recognize. Ask God to give you that spiritual insight. You know why? Because if he can separate husband and wife, which is the most powerful entity that God has created, all this power that I'm telling you about that God has, I mean, it's captured in marriage. And that's why the first institution that God made is marriage. And so that's why he tries to confuse kids. Because God wants to help you. God wants to heal you. God wants to help you. In fact, okay. All right. Let me
like
just
Betty
quickly.
now, it's 5 more minutes.
Okay,
Minutes to
5
one.
minutes. Okay, okay. Now,
5 to
but let
1.
me just tell you this quick story, right? Some time ago, when I had a stroke, right? And the text that drove me, about 6 years ago, the text that drove me is Isaiah 4:110. When God says, I will help you. So when I remember that, it drives me knowing that I am going to be helped. I don't care what the situation is. For husband and wife, it might be emotional issues. It might be relationship issues. God is saying to you, I can help you. I will help you. Just trust me. I have all the power to help you. But you just have to trust me and have faith in me that I will help you. So that just remember those. Okay.
Okay, let's get back to math and science.
No.
Yes. Now, the sun, we said, was the source of all energy, even the electromagnetic spectrum that we looked at. And from that sun comes energy. And when the plant absorbs that energy, then it makes food. The only real manufacturer in the entire earth is the plant. We are all consumers. We don't manufacture a thing. We're consuming what the plants manufacture. And those elements that we're talking about in our periodic table, all of those elements, which is the basis of science, this is what we get in the food, right? Your phosphorus and your calcium and your magnesium, etc. So when you eat the food that God gave us, you get those things that your body needs to keep on regenerating. We were made to live forever. Sin interrupted. But if it wasn't for sin, we would live forever. So your body has the ability to heal itself and keep on regenerating. That's why every 6 months, you have a new cell, you have new cells being made. So the body that you were born with is not the body that you have now. But God is so wonderful. As much as all the cells keep on changing every 6 months, yet still I can still recognize spawn in the next 6 months as spawn. Because it regenerates their new cells, but they're formed in the same structure as spawn's face is. Now, if you go to our food, like the coconut, it's a tropical food, right? It's a drink also, and it tells you what the coconut has in it. That's good for you. It is from the plant. It is from nature, right? It has potassium in there, significant amounts of potassium, phosphorus, manganese. All of this is good for your brain food. That's the quickest way to hydrate yourself. It brings down your blood pressure too for those with blood pressure because of the potassium content. And it is nature's water, and therefore it enters the cell very readily because the cell can recognize it. They are compatible. Strawberries. Children like that. You should have a little patch in your backyard for them. The strawberries, very high in what? Vitamin C. Very low in calories. It's also known to bring down cholesterol. It also cleanses. They say if you go on a cleanse, you eat a quart of strawberries first thing in the morning. Very effective cleanser. Bananas. Again, potassium, but it is said that bananas is more higher in carbohydrates and water. As a matter of fact, it is not the highest in potassium. Beans and apricots and carrots and sweet potatoes have more potassium than the banana itself, but it is marketed as being high in potassium. Very good in carbohydrates, because your body needs the carbohydrates. That's what it converts into what? Glucose, sugar for your energy. Lemons. And the lemon juice is the closest thing to your digestive, the hydrochloric acid in your stomach. That's nature's digestive juice. The closest thing to your digestive juice is the lemon juice. And that's why you should have a little lemon every day in your water. because what it detoxes the liver also is and alkalines the body. Lemon, very good for your body. It helps, it will enhance your digestion if you have a little lemon water before and after digestion. The figs, one of my favorite foods. Very good for you, very high. Remember, Hezekiah put those figs on that lump that he had? And what did he do? It pulled out those toxins from his body. It still does the same things today. Very good for detoxing, very nourishing, the figs. Almonds, the king of nuts. It's the number one nut in terms of alkalinity. It's an alkaline nut. And it is high in niacin, vitamin E, calcium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc. That's a whole food in itself there, iron. But again, you have to be sparing with nuts because nuts are high in what? Fat and also protein, which takes a long time to digest and a lot of acid to digest. So it's important, it must be in your diet because you need it for your brain, you need the fat for your brain, the good fats, but yet still you have to be sparing with it because it takes a lot from the system to digest it. Avocados, one of my favorites again too. Very good for you. It has one of those good fats that we need also. It's high in vitamin B, in the K, C, and E, and potassium. Your garlic and your onions, they're like natural antiseptics, especially in this flu and cold season. Have a lot of this in your food every day. Keep your body clean. It kills those parasites for you, and it kills those germs in there. It reduces cholesterol and blood pressure. Tomatoes, good for the men, for your manhood, right? Keep the prostate healthy. Tomatoes. Grapes and the grape juice. The grape juice, is said, is the closest to your blood after chlorophyll in terms of makeup. And that grape juice is very good for you. And I know most of us are vegetarians, but if somebody is very emaciated, very sick, and need a boost, even Ellen G. White recommended it. You take if you can get a natural egg, an organic egg, and you beat it up in a glass of pure grape juice. Very nourishing because the egg has all the elements that you need. It's a whole food. Same thing with sea moss or Irish moss, Pastor mentioned last week. It has almost all of the elements in it too that the body needs. Very nourishing. And that is as closest as you can get to blood. That raw egg in a glass of grape juice. Very nourishing and uplifting. The apple, they say an apple a day, and there's a reason for that. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? Exactly. Very nourishing, the apple, because it has what? Vitamin C, low in calories too. You know, it has many things that, all those phytochemicals that they talk about that your body needs. Olives, right? You cannot go, in the mornings, you can take a tablespoon of olive oil, and it will help in your elimination. Very nourishing for you, good fat that your body needs also. So the sun, again, is the one that manufactures all of those things. The energy from the sun. So when you eat those things and they enter your body, it is not really these things per se that nourishes the body, but it is these elements in the periodic table that we have been teaching you and exposing you to that your body extracts from the food. It is these elements that gives your body the energy and the vitality that it needs. And therefore, that's why your food has to be nutrient rich, because this is what your body takes from the food. These elements. It is not the food per se, but it's these elements must be in your food so that that's what your body extracts to give you that energy.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Now, one point I really want to stress here, I mean, understand what drives me and this whole program. Now, earlier on, I was mentioning the importance of emotional health. I mean, that's critical. I mean, if you leave without understanding or getting this point, I mean, you would have missed out significantly, right? The devil wants to attack you emotionally from your diet and emotionally, because when you're unhappy, you don't eat properly, your food does not digest properly, and you don't coalesce with your spouse. And once they do that, the children suffer, the whole family members around you suffer. And so we want you to be able to understand and see where he's coming from. Unless we understand that other things really don't mean much. So it's very important to be able to keep the devil away from you, particularly from your home, because that's the place you want him, to come and show happiness, and that's the place that the devil wants to come and intercept and cause dissension. I want everyone to live with that. But anyhow, I have a set of balloons. Okay, right. I'm going to have one blown up for us. And we would have 4 balloons. And how would you know which one is which? I'm going to tell you what they are. I'm going to write them on the board. That's fine, that's fine. Okay, one is air. The next one is carbon dioxide. The next one is helium. And what's the last one? Hydrogen. Yes. Okay, so if you can tie that off for me, please. All of them are exceedingly important. Why hydrogen? And by the way, Sister Philip, I thank you for taking this, to the school. I thank you for taking that flyer, right? Now, when I went to the school, I saw the things that you posted on the board, and I left a periodic table at the school, and the instructor wanted one of them, because this here is God's kitchen. These are the elements God used to make everything that God made. Hydrogen, helium, all these things here. So we would have 4 of them here. Air, carbon dioxide, helium, and hydrogen. Hydrogen is what burns in the sun all the time. That's what keeps the sun burning. Okay. Okay. But how do you know which is which? Okay. Let me hold this here. Sorry, take this out. Oh, okay, the 2 of you come, please. The 2 of you come, please. The 2 of you. Okay, hold this one for me, please. Okay, hold it. Okay, I want you to come as well, please. No, I'm Poppy, no. Okay. Okay. No. All right. Thank you very much. Come. Could he come in front and hold it? Right. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna blow one for him separately. Come. You come this side. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me take this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Come, please. Okay. I want you to hold this. Okay. Hold this. And they would face you. They would face the congregation. And I want you to drop them and see which one falls to the ground faster. Okay, 1, 2, 3, drop. Okay. Now let me tell you, I'll tell you the answer. One of them is carbon dioxide. And do you think carbon dioxide will drop faster than the air balloon? Which one will come to the ground faster? Carbon dioxide or the air balloon? Okay. Right. So you can tell which one is carbon dioxide. Let's try once again. The carbon dioxide, because it's heavier than air, it fell to the ground faster. Okay, so one of them is carbon dioxide, one of them is helium. Okay. Okay. Now I have 2 of them, helium and hydrogen. This one is helium. Okay, helium and hydrogen. Now hydrogen is also lighter than air. And what I'm going to do, we know which one is, that one is helium. I'm just going to do a simple experiment to show you something about hydrogen. Why it's so important. If you notice, when God does things, you always have to ask yourself, there's a reason. When you look at this periodic table, the lowest one, with atomic weight 1, is hydrogen. In other words, that's the lightest element that God made. Helium. Okay. So, light. Okay. Now we getting ready to wrap things up now. Very much. Okay. By the way, when hydrogen, this is a law now, which applies everywhere you go. In China, in South America, if you put a flame to hydrogen and it's mixed with air, it gives a loud pop. Those who have a problem, those who have a problem with sound, with a loud pop, if it would bother you, you can either leave or cover your ears. Okay, don't lie. Okay, which one is the air balloon?
The green one.
Okay. You sure? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You sure this one is ear? Okay. Which one is the carbon dioxide? Okay. Okay, good. Okay. No. Okay. Okay. Now put your finger in your ear, please. If you. Okay. Okay. So that one was air. Let's try carbon dioxide. Move everything else on you. Move the glass, everything. No, move the glass. Move everything over there. Okay. Okay, that one was carbon dioxide. Now, if you notice, I intentionally put a smaller balloon for this one here. This one is... No. Okay, sorry. Right. This one is hydrogen. Okay. 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 Now, if you notice, it's hydrogen that powers the sun. And so that's why hydrogen is so important in the sight of God. And the reason it keeps regenerating itself, burning and never going out, because the product is what's also, the end product is also what also turns out to be fuel. They call them isotopes. It's a different form of hydrogen that becomes now the fuel after being the end product. Anyhow, what I want to encourage youngsters, God is real. And he is amazing if you trust him. You just trust him. Your brain, the devil wants your brain to be cloudy. That's what he wants. See, because that's where God communicates with you, through your brain. Nobody, Pastor Corn can tell you what I told his daughter, right? Before we started, I told her that she would get an A or a B in her math class. Because I had that once she cooperates and she does what she has to do, it works all the time. It works all the time. And so nobody is dense or dumb. I don't care what it is in math and science, in your classes, whatever you do, God will quicken your brain. Pray and ask him to give you the wisdom. He's there to help you. The devil wants to hurt you. Remember when you wake up in the morning, there are two forces trying to destroy you. The devil wants to hurt you, and God wants to strengthen you and to help you. He promised you, Isaiah 41:10, he says, I will help you. So may God bless you all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.